The Wholesome One and Mike Williams both asking about Greg Rousseau and Trevon Hill, whether those guys are going to step up this year.
Absolutely. Trevon Hill got dismissed from Virginia Tech after like 3 or 4 games last year. He had the highest rate of QB pressure, tackles for loss, and sacks, the highest percentage rate of any defensive end in the ACC at the time that he was dismissed. Now, I know that he got off against Florida State and their sieve-like offensive line in the first game, but when you have a defense predicated on havoc and you bring in the guy who, through his time on the field last year, was wreaking havoc better than any player in the ACC, and this is with guys who are going to get drafted very highly: Cleveland Farrell, Christian Wilkins, Joe Jackson, Gerald Willis, Brian Burns at Florida State, other guys. There's a decent defensive end from NC State this past year. But above any and all of those guys, Trevon Hill was wreaking more havoc. And now you come into a defense that is predicated on that. Yeah, that's going to be a big addition. Gregory Rousseau is massive physically. There's a picture from the scrimmage, actually, where Will Mallory's in the three-point stance. And Will Mallory is 6'5", about 230, 235. And he looks like a 4th grade boy sitting or lined up across from Gregory Rousseau, because Gregory Rousseau looks like Too Tall Jones, or something like that. He just looks like, he's just huge. He's 6'7". He came in at 6'6". He's probably pushing 6'7", 6'8", has enormous wingspan. He's up in the 250s or 60s for weight. He could probably even add a little bit more. And again, in the first scrimmage, 4 sacks, which was par for the course for him last year in the scrimmages, where Greg Rousseau was so disruptive in the first scrimmage after being an early enrollee at 225 pounds, after having played outside linebacker, wide receiver, and safety in high school. He was so disruptive at defensive end in the first scrimmage last year that Miami had to whole scale redo their offensive line. And that seems to be continuing. So you have that kind of elite talent. Then you're adding Trevon Hill to Jonathan Garvin, who with another strong season could realistically be a first-round draft pick. Then you have Scott Patchen as a 5th-year senior finally being healthy and able to live up to his potential, because he's battled injuries and things. Miami was so thin at tight end 2 years ago that they switched Scott Patchen to tight end for a couple of games. And he did it because he was a team player, but he was a medium-high 4-star recruit from IMG Academy at defensive end. So you have all those guys. And then I didn't even mention Jafari Harvey, who's an early enrollee, who, he looks like the next coming of Jonathan Garvin, an underrated 3-star guy from, the Palm Beach County area. Shout out to Kev, 561, what up? So he's coming down. He's an early enrollee, and he's turning heads. If you add in Rousseau and Hill to, Garvin and Patchen, and now adding in Harvey as a freshman, that's a pretty formidable defensive end rotation. So, yeah, I do believe both of those guys are going to be big additions for the Canes, and they're definitely going to both make plays.